So, Stephen, you just celebrated your 5th anniversary of being a bishop, Bishop of Savannah. And I still remember the day that I heard or got the news that Pope Francis had appointed you a bishop. I was in my office in St. Petersburg, and the nuncio called me. So he was actually the one who told me the news.
Right.
He felt like, as your brother, I needed to know. And as soon as I spoke with him and he told me the good news that you were going to be Bishop of Savannah, I think I tried to get in touch with you. I might have texted you a note of congratulations, and then eventually we spoke on the phone.
We did. You actually texted me. You said, I hear you have some news. And I thought, oh, yes, I do have some news. But that also told me that it was okay to speak about with you, that he had spoken to you. And we connected a couple of hours later, I believe. But it was about 2 days later, we met, if you remember, for lunch. And you gave me a zucchetto and a pectoral cross, which is the one that I wear almost all of the time. So I'm always very grateful for that.
I remember we arranged to have lunch kind of halfway between St. Petersburg and Orlando, where you were at the time, so that I think I brought a selection of pectoral crosses. And
you gave me a choice,
things,
which I thought was very kind of you.
Well, I was happy to do that, because it's not something you would normally have, just kind of sitting around waiting to be appointed a bishop. So,
and also it was good to get your approval as the older brother about what size of a zucchetto to wear and how it would look, etc.
Well, it was certainly a day of joy for me and for our family to receive that news, and then ultimately to be present for your ordination as a bishop. You know, during these 5 years, as you might expect, you've done a lot of traveling throughout your diocese. You have a very large diocese, I think 90 counties, 36,000 square miles, most of southern Georgia. What's been the greatest joy you've had during this time as a bishop?
I have thoroughly enjoyed visiting the parishes, all of them. We have 77 parishes and missions. I think to be able to visit with the people, to be with the people, to accompany them, to walk the journey and meet the people. Most of the time I am on the road, it seems. About 40% of the time I'm outside of the city of Savannah. So it's been a great experience to travel around and, as I mentioned, get to know the people, which I think you know very well because you had served in Pensacola, the Diocese of Pensacola, Tallahassee. So you know what it is to have a mission diocese, but you had 2 time zones. I'm not sure how you quite managed that.
Well, going between Pensacola, Tallahassee, you always had to either add an hour or subtract an hour to make sure you were there on time. But I really think that both you and I are pastors at heart, pastoral. Before we became bishops, we were pastors of parishes, very successful parishes, and really enjoyed that aspect of our ministry. And I know when I became a bishop, I tried to bring that into my ministry as a bishop, was still to be a pastor, which you are. Not of a parish, but of a whole diocese. So that's been a great joy.
I'm not sure for you, but for me, it took me a while to embrace that because I missed it at first, that you don't see the same people week after week. But then you realize after you visited a place a couple of times, well, I'm the shepherd and I do get to know the people. And you see familiar faces and you develop relationships. So
you really do. I remember when I was bishop in Diocese of Pensacola, Tallahassee, a lot of the parishes were probably similar to the ones that you visit in South Georgia, very small kind of rural parishes where you go for Mass on a Sunday morning and afterward they have a potluck for you, which is always a lot of fun. And but you literally get to meet or say hello to every person that's there. And that's something that's a little different for me now in St. Petersburg, because we have mostly larger parishes, medium to larger size parishes. So I do get to visit them and have been to every parish in my diocese, but you don't necessarily develop those personal relationships with people.
Well, I see the pictures of your confirmations online, and you have huge groups. I don't know how you get them all together for a picture, for a group picture.
It can be a little chaotic at times. Sometimes the confirmandi practice the actual photo, sometimes they don't. But you just have to be patient, and it's a joy. You know, I guess you've had the opportunity to ordain men priests at this point. I don't know how you feel, but from my perspective, I think ordaining future priests, ordaining priests, is certainly the most important thing that we do, because it's something that only bishops can do. And it's really for the future, the present and the future of the church. So how has that experience been for you of actually ordaining men to the priesthood?
I think we realize the huge responsibility that there is, that we've walked this journey with these men. You know, we pray, we're grateful for their formators, those who've helped them along the journey. And then really to just realize that this is life-changing for them. And they're making a commitment to serve our diocese for this, you know, for the rest of their lives. So I'm sure for you as well, you know, you just realize the immense responsibility that is there and the grace of the Spirit. I think it's a wonderful time to rely on the Spirit.
Certainly a joy and a blessing. You know, when we were kids, when we were growing up, for some reason, I think everybody thought I was going to be the priest. I don't know why that is. They didn't usually associate you or think you might be a priest. But actually, you entered the seminary before I did, a year before I did.
I think I was a little bit more of the surprise in it. I think we always thought that you would be a priest, probably from about the age of 7 or 8 years old, I believe. And I think it was just your disposition, Greg. I think that you just had a good way about you, a desire to serve, a gentleness as well. I think all qualities that we want to see in our parish priests.
Yeah, but both of us, you know, went to college, the state universities, University of South Florida, Florida State for me. And then we worked for a number of years, you know, in the business world. And it was really for me during that time that I started praying and seriously discerning what God was calling me to do with my life. And you probably had a similar experience.
Very similar. I think it was after college is when I really started seriously thinking about it. You may remember I wanted to be a doctor. That was kind of always my goal. And I realized that that's what God had in store for me. It was not to be a doctor of the physical, of the body, but rather of the soul. And I think that certainly I feel as though it's kind of fulfilled a little bit of that, of perhaps what I wanted to do early on. And for you, I know you worked for a bank. You were 7, 8 years, I believe.
Yeah, 7 years I worked for a bank in Tampa right after college. And during that time, I discerned my call to the priesthood, never realizing I would come back to Tampa eventually as the bishop of the diocese there. So it's just amazing how God works. But I have to say, you know, Stephen, it's been really, first of all, it was a great blessing that we both were called to be priests. But now, I mean, to share the vocation of being bishops is an extra special blessing. As you know, we don't have a large family. Our parents have been deceased for over 20 years now. Older brother Chris passed away several years ago. So really kind of you and I are our immediate family. And the fact that we share this vocation, I know it means a lot to me, and I know it does to you as well.
What do you think our parents would say at this point?
Well, I probably couldn't believe it, but I think they'd be very, very happy and very proud of us. As you know, Mom and Dad always loved priests, and we always had priests who were friends of our family. They always encouraged us to consider vocations to the priesthood. So I'm confident that they're hopefully praying for us and watching our ministry, watching over our ministry from heaven.
I think they would enjoy traveling between Savannah and St. Petersburg if they were alive today.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So, you know, Stephen, people have asked me if we get to see each other a lot. And I say, you know, in some ways, now that we're both bishops, I see you more than when you were still a pastor and I was a bishop, because we have these meetings. You know, we're currently at the fall bishops meeting in Baltimore. We get to see each other 2 times a year there, twice a year on our at seminary, because we're both on the board of trustees. As well as we do our regional bishops retreat together every January in Tampa. So it's great to see you here, and I'm looking forward to our continued time together. As you know, we always try to make it a priority to have either a brother's lunch or a brother's dinner together, so looking forward to that.
And I feel the same. You know, one of the great highlights, I think, of our priesthood was when we were both named pastors at the same time. And remember, every week we would get together. Every Thursday night we would have dinner and speak about our experiences. So I think we've continued that tradition, and it's always a joy as well. I think we may, you know, we may not see each other all the time, But I think that bond of brotherhood and the support that's there is always such a blessing.
We'll continue to do that, and of course, to keep each other in prayer. So
Yes, of
God
course.
bless.
Thank you.